Yo, what's up guys? So when I first got into this whole IEM thing, I had the chance to try the 64 audio U12T, which was and still is regarded as one of the best endgame IEMs. But a few days ago I had the chance to listen to them again, and oh boy has my opinion changed on them. Because this thing, it hurts. Now when I first heard it 2 years ago, I thought it was amazing, but after getting to hear more gear over time and changing my listening habits, I'm a little bit confused as to how there aren't more complaints about this set. But let's first take a look at the graph. So everything looks pretty nice before we hit the vocal drop off and treble rocket. The bass is overall still neutral but slightly warm leaning, which adds body to instruments and vocals. Now personally, I would have liked a little less mid-bass for this type of signature, since it's not a bass head set, and the only scenario I think that warrants and justifies mid-bass is when you're slamming and rocking your brains out without caring about clarity and all that stuff. But the bass is perfectly fine, there's no bloat, it has nice texture, speed, and separation. It still doesn't have the feeling of physical air slamming like a dynamic driver, but the energy is pretty good, and definitely not wet noodle bass like the IE200. But here's where things take a nosedive. Where did the vocals go? Why is there a sudden scoop at 3K, which is where vocals are supposed to be? This reminds me of the IE200 where the mid-range is recessed, but here the vocals are actually even more scooped than the IE200. The added mid-bass also doesn't help, since you're just muddying the vocals even more. Sure, it sounds thicker now, but the mid-bass in this case can't act to balance any brightness from vocals because there are none. So it just sounds muffled and a bit congested since there's no vocal energy and brightness to cut through the mud. Now the Smarty Pants at 64 tried to work around this by instead adding more treble to give vocals a sense of shimmer and edge. But instead they just come off as too sharp because the added brightness is in the wrong region. So instead of making vocals feel open, now it's both congested and they have trailing sharpness at the end of their notes. Don't know how they managed to do that, but then again, 64 also released this monstrosity of a unit, so who knows. Maybe they're just 5-head and we're all idiots. But the worst part is the treble. I can somewhat overlook recessed vocals since I can just turn up the volume, right? But scaling becomes impossible now because of the stabbing high end. So it's either too much treble or recessed vocals. The funny thing is, the treble would have been fine since it's actually pretty solid from 6 to 10k, but then they just had to add the two huge peaks at 13k and 17k, and with everything added together, it just now becomes too much. Now, maybe people didn't notice this because either they listened at a lower volume, has some sort of hearing loss, or their libraries just somehow is the right fit. Since I also didn't hear any noticeable treble issues on slower and more laid back tracks like First Love by Hikaru Utada, the most recent Father John Misty album, and Big Thief. However, it does become very evident on songs with higher dynamic contrast like pretty much any K-pop, J-pop, and J-rock stuff. I constantly had to adjust the volume between the quiet and loud parts, which makes the U12T's overall dynamics pretty sad for $2,000. That aside, it does excel at detail retrieval, note sharpness, and overall instrument layering and separation. I mean, I certainly hope so with 12 drivers and that much treble, but overall there was no smearing and I could clearly pick out individual instruments and micro nuances. Probably the best I heard in those departments. Imaging is also great, centered, not floaty, and notes are fast in the attack, decay, as well as being very precise and sharp on impact. Staging is a bit weird because vocals and mid-range are recessed, so there's no context for other sounds to create a sense of distance, which results in a flat feeling stage. But the U12T does feel very open and wider than other IEMs, and it's not like the vocals are behind the instruments, but there's definitely less contrast or 3D-ness between them. I guess the upside to this decision is that it feels more open and deeper, but again, might just be psychoacoustics as well. Overall, even though the U12T has top tier detail and layering, I still wouldn't pay $2,000 or even $500 for it because of the scooped out vocals and fatiguing treble that ruins many highly dynamic songs. For its use case, which I'm assuming isn't basshead related, the variations and EJ07M are a way better option with actually fully extended and open vocals as well as smooth treble dynamics. And if you want more warmth, then there's also the RS5 and Heyday as well. But yeah, I'm gonna redo my list. That's all for today. Thanks for watching guys, like, comment, and sub, and I'll see everyone in the next video. Peace.